We're official. Welcome all. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees for the Indian River County Hospital District to order. I'm not the traditional fellow that sits in the seat. I'm acting chairman for the day, as our chair and vice chair were otherwise engaged. We're going to start the meeting today with an invocation, and Frank Isley is going to handle that for us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Honored to do so. If we could please bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together today in service of this community we hold so dear. As we gather, we ask for your guidance and wisdom. Help us to listen with open hearts, to speak with integrity, and to act with courage and compassion. May our decisions today reflect not only sound judgment, but also deep care for those we are called to serve, the sick, the vulnerable, and all who rely on our efforts for healing and hope. Bless the work of our hands and minds, and remind us that each step we take here ripples far beyond this room. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Please rise for the pledge. Next on the agenda, Jennifer Peschke, Attorney Overview.
All righty, thank you, Mr. Chair. The Indian River County Hospital District is an independent special taxing district located in Indian River County, Florida, created and incorporated by Chapter 61-2275, Special Acts of the 1961 Legislature, Laws of Florida as amended. The governing board of the district is comprised of 7 publicly elected trustees, all of whom have been duly elected by the residents of the district in accordance with the provisions of Section 3 of the Special Act of the Florida Legislature creating the Indian River County Hospital District. To be eligible to sit on the board of trustees, all applicants running for election and sitting trustees must comply with the Code of Ethics for all publicly elected officials found within Part 3, Chapter 112 of the Florida statutes. At regular and special meetings of the board, business shall be transacted in such order as the board may from time to time determine. Voting upon all matters coming before the board shall be by voice vote unless a vote by roll call shall be demanded by a member of the board, in which case the secretary shall call the roll and the manner of voting of each member present shall be noted in the minutes. 4 physically present trustees constitutes a quorum. An affirmative vote of at least 3 trustees shall be necessary to the transaction of any business of the district. All board meetings shall be conducted in a manner consistent with the district's bylaws as amended and restated and in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order and the applicable provisions of Florida law. In the event of conflict between the bylaws and Robert's Rules of Order, the district's bylaws as amended and restated shall govern. Meetings shall be conducted under the direction of the chairperson. Courtesy shall be extended by all participants to all other participants. Comments by all participants shall be limited to issues under discussion and shall not include personal attacks or innuendo. Business conducted at board meetings shall be limited to agenda items. Counsel for the district shall serve as the district's parliamentarian. The chairperson shall consult the parliamentarian whenever necessary. In providing an opportunity for public participation at its public meetings, the Indian River County Hospital District has adopted the following reasonable rules and policies which will ensure the orderly conduct of a public meeting and which will require orderly behavior on the part of those persons attending and making public comment. The public shall be given the opportunity to comment on a matter that comes before the district board prior to the board taking a vote on a given matter that does not constitute simply a ministerial act. When an individual wishes to comment on a matter or to be voted on by the board that is not purely ministerial in nature, public comment will be called for by a board member, and an individual wishing to make a public comment must approach the podium and identify himself or herself by name and address at such time as public comment is called for before a vote is taken. Each individual requesting the ability to make a public comment must limit his or her comment to no greater than 5 minutes to address the board. If the individual making public comment represents a group and is addressing the board on behalf of that group, the individual must identify himself or herself by name and address and also identify the group that he or she represents. Only one representative from any group may make public comment on any given item for board discussion and vote so that only one member of a given group is commenting on a given agenda item. The Indian River County Hospital District Board of Trustees acknowledge that comments made at public meetings can have an impactful effect on public opinion. As such, members of the public making comments, whether outright or in response to public comment, shall base comments on a factual basis and not merely on personal opinions. The following guidelines from Robert's Rules of Order for public participation in board meetings shall be observed. Speakers are requested to use the centrally located microphone and lectern when available. Prior to addressing the board, all speakers should state their name, address, and organizational affiliation, if any. Questions and comments should be addressed to the entire board, not to individual trustees. When a specific topic is under consideration, questions and comments should be confined to the matter under discussion and not extended to any other matter. A limit of 5 minutes shall be allotted to each speaker on any given item, provided, however, that the chairperson may limit or extend the time period for speakers on a particular item. The board may override the chairperson or vote to limit or extend the time period by majority vote of the trustees present and voting. A speaker who does not need the entire 5 minutes may not yield any unused portion of the time to another speaker. On controversial issues, speakers for and against a given topic may be recognized alternately by the chairperson. Board members may question a speaker for the purpose of clarification or information. It is expected that speakers will observe commonly accepted rules of courtesy, decorum, dignity, and good taste. Personal attacks will be ruled out of order, as will the use of intemperate, abusive, and defamatory language. Written statements will be received by the board in addition to or in lieu of oral presentations. Public comment may be invited at any time by the chairperson or by a majority vote of the board. Public comment shall be solicited on major motions and before the conclusion of a regular meeting. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Jennifer. At this point, we want to go to the consent agenda. We'll need approval of the chairman's meeting minutes dated March 19th, the regular monthly meeting minutes dated March 20th, and an April disbursement of $1,853,330.52.
So I have two. On the board meeting, I did not make it. I'm not sure if the listing, I had planned to, but I had an appointment that got complicated and prevented me from being here. So that needs to be reflected. And then on the chairman's meeting, in the area under other business, Dr. Creelman made comments that aren't reflected there, and I see that comments made by others are reflected. And in my view, because of the topic we were discussing and where we may go possibly, his comments were particularly topical. So I don't know if we want to hold off on considering those minutes and have them added and then consider next month.
Does anyone have a problem with that? We don't have a motion yet, so as we make the motion, we can.
I'll make that motion. I'll make that motion.
And I'll second it.
Okay. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Or yes? Thank you. And then we'll just, Kate, you're on.
Sure, yeah, I'll listen to the recording
Yep.
and see what was missed.
Yep.
Thank you, Kate.
All right. Agenda item 6, reports. And first off, our district council report. Jennifer, the floor is yours again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. You heard a lot of this yesterday, but we'll repeat that again for the public listening today. I've responded to questions from trustees as they've arisen pertaining to various matters the district is handling at the present time. Continuing to review, of course, the annual deadlines and deliverables due to the district under our lease with Indian River Cleveland Clinic, and responded with questions as they arise. In accordance with that, I have received from Cleveland Clinic the annual written report and accompanying facility documents our lease requires the hospital to provide to the district, due and received March 31st of 2025. A copy of the cover letter is attached in the meeting packet to my report. And if a member of the public or the board, that I believe the board has received all this, but if you haven't, member of the public or the board would like a copy of anything that was delivered to us in accordance with this report, please contact Kate Voss, the district's records custodian, who can provide that to you. I've continued to work this month with our staff on our internal policies. Yesterday, you looked at and adopted a conflict of interest policy for the board's use. Subject to a small edit that we did make and submitted to the district office yesterday. So they have that in place, and our board chair will be signing that, and then that will be circulated and saved down as a final document. Also continuing to discuss with counsel for Indian River Cleveland Clinic on our discussion we had yesterday with going back through kind of creating some more guidelines and report outs for our board chair to bring back from the monthly hospital board meetings he does attend, and information that he is able to share with the trustees. So I've got a call out to her to try to set a call to follow up from our discussion we had yesterday at our chairman's meeting on that matter. And again, I've worked on an RFP process outline that we walked through yesterday at the chairman's meeting, and we'll be working to put that into a form of a policy with district staff to then bring back before you to adopt in the coming month or so. Any questions from anybody at this time?
Just in looking at the report from Cleveland Clinic, would be the third page, just under the note. I'm wondering, this may be nothing, but I'm wondering if the way that they operate with their fiscal year versus our fiscal year, if we might cater to theirs. So for instance, our fiscal year ends September 30th. They may have a different fiscal year, and I'm wondering if their financial reporting might be better served if we alter the dates that are, in other words, that we're expected this sort of report from them so that it coincides with the work that they're doing. I don't know if that's the case, but
I'm looking to Alan, and
yeah.
do you guys know, are they in a calendar year basis? I mean, that's something that's easily,
More just a question
Yeah,
of convenience
would it
for
make a
them.
difference? Yeah.
Yeah, if it doesn't make a difference, who cares? But if it's something that would make a difference for them, it might be worth asking to see in order to accommodate them.
I will ask them what
why don't you
their
follow up, Frank?
cycle is.
This is not a question for you, Jennifer. I was just looking at all of when they detailed the expenses, those capital expenses, a great many of them are prefaced with IRMC. At this point in time, I don't know if that usage, I was just curious about the usage. I mean, you think everything would be CC, IRH. Who knows?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I do know that the corporation is still Indian River Memorial
okay.
Hospital. And it's doing business now as Cleveland Clinic Indian River Hospital. So some of that may be legacy or how checks are written.
That's very likely it, thank you. I was just curious more than anything. And of course, there was a reference to their filing the ACA report, and by the end of next month, we should have that as well. So, any other questions for Jen? Okay. Moving forward, we'll ask the treasurer for his review of the finances. As we review the financial position of the hospital district 6 months into the 24-25 fiscal year, it's again my pleasure to report that our financial situation is very good. As usual, let's begin our review by turning to those last 4 pages of the March financials that you received in your packet. And we'll start 4 pages from the back with the district's investment in cash snapshot. At the top of that overview, you'll see that at the end of March, the district had received $19,789,156 of our ad valorem taxes. That's 93.6% of what is budgeted. And as a point of reference, last fiscal year at this time, we had received 91.6, so we're a couple percentage points ahead of last year. Section 1 of this report details our U.S. Treasury holdings, which total $8,048,728 on March 31st. That rightmost column shows the maturity dates for those T-bills. They're staggered monthly through September, and they are at an average rate of 4.23%. The next section, Section 2, updates the district's holdings in the preferred deposit pool. That's our money market account. And you see that as of the end of last month, it held $9,221,083, earning a rate of 4.38%. And Section 3 shows that the district's local operating account was holding $452,994 on March 31st. Now, altogether, at the midpoint of the fiscal year, the district's investment in cash holdings totaled $17,722,798. And it also shows, I don't always reference this, that 97% of the taxpayers' money that we've received so far is invested for growth until we draw that down. I want to thank Frank Isley again for so effectively investing these funds. And also, he's the guy that compiles that particular report on a monthly basis, so thank you, Frank. The next page, the next 3 pages, is the year-to-date expense versus budget spreadsheet. Again, halfway through the fiscal year, you'd expect that all expenses will be in the vicinity of 50% of their budget, and by and large, that's true, but clearly there's always some deviation. I would remind you also that as we have already moved most of our funded programs to a fee-for-service reimbursement, there are very few that are going to track on an even monthly disbursement basis, and that's going to be even more true when we get to next fiscal year, as you know. I will highlight, though, a couple of funded agencies and programs just for a couple of comments. I'll start with the Visiting Nurse Association. You can see that the mobile health clinic is almost at 61%, and the hospice house and home hospice care is at 136.84%, which we've talked about at the last couple of meetings. Jenny and I spoke a couple of days ago, and she informed me that she will soon be meeting with her friends at the VNA to discuss the budget situation and determine how we're going to formalize actions needed to deal with what those overages are, what the needs are going to be, and that'll perhaps next month, but certainly within the next couple of months. TCCH is slightly over with medical services at about 55% and behavioral health services at 63%. However, as we're all aware, funds originally approved for the mobile dental and mobile medical care are not being utilized. This is very likely a situation where, as they come to us to speak to staff, we can allow the reallocation of funds already committed to the agency, but in different areas. But again, we'll formalize those actions at some point over the next month or so. Though a smaller agency with a much smaller approved budget, We Care programs has already well exceeded the budget for the ophthalmology services. It's at 162% of budget. Again, Jenny informed me that she has spoken to Vicki Soule, who is, I guess, temporarily overseeing. I'm not sure officially what the title or formality is, but she's going to do a review of all those expenses when, again, working with Jen, we'll give that some discussion probably next month. And lastly, I'll just remind you that the LIP accounts, there are 2 at 0 low-income pool. Those will probably come forward in the next month or 2, but that's the typical scenario. They come later in the fiscal year. And they're significant expenses, but they come in one lump sum, if I remember right, once we do have them. And then on the middle of the last page of the spreadsheet, you'll see that the total for all program expenses through March was $8,677,856, which computes to 45.91% of the approved total program budget. And then the bottom half of that last page shows the district's administrative expenses. And you can see that the total expenses through March 31st totaled $677,583, which is 50.79% of the approved budget. And if you read Frank's comments introducing the financial section, he noted that excluding the timing of the insurance premium payment, which we paid off like a month ago, might have been 2, which is one big lump sum, if that had been assessed on a monthly basis, or if we look at it that way, administrative expenses would be under budget. Combined, total program and admin expenses total $9,355,440, or 46.23% of budget. The comparison on that sheet shows you that 1 year ago, last fiscal year, we were at 46.24%. My note reads, Mr. Acting Chairman, that concludes my report, and I would be happy to answer any questions that the trustees might have. Thank you, Treasurer Kent. A good report as usual. Trustees, are there any questions that you have? I'd be happy to answer or attempt to. And I'm going to add something. I thought about this just before I got here. We talk about overages on some of these lines, and I thought I'd take the chance because I think everybody here is largely aware. But let's talk VNA. They're being reimbursed on a fee-for-service, and only for citizens of the county who qualify to be utilizing dollars that come from the hospital district. So it's a case where, yes, they're over, and we need to have a discussion because we do submit budgets. We do want to follow them. We certainly track them. But the reality is, those extra dollars aren't because they're doing something out of the norm. In fact, they're doing everything that we're asking them to do and serving more people. They've had an influx, and that's true with both those of those areas, even the hospice. We talked about this 2 months ago. It's unfortunate, but there are just more people using hospice services, and one of the reasons there are more is because it's a lesser time. They're not requiring hospice services for as lengthy a time, which opens beds, et cetera. So, but that was worth mentioning. The public doesn't necessarily understand. They're just seeing, well, there's an overage, and we're going to talk about it and make it up and approve it. But again, they're doing the work that we need them to do and want them to do. And they're serving those uninsured and underinsured, that ALICE population, and a whole lot of other folks. So, and with that, I'm officially going to move on, and we'll go to C, which is the Executive Director Report. Frank Isley.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I included a pretty detailed report, and there was no specific highlights I wanted to hit, but I wanted to see if there was any questions on any of those topics.
On VCOM, with regard to the difficulty they're having getting the attention that they want in terms of getting the approval, do they need or want any assistance
Lost my mind.
from us?
We have a call scheduled for, I believe, the week after next with Dr. Mackett to talk through some of the detail on that. You know, I had sent them a letter. They're fully committed to everything we've been discussing, and they're actually quite enthusiastic. This hurdle, this last legal hurdle with establishing themselves in Florida and being able to have residencies in Florida and having students rotate through there is the one piece we're waiting on. So we're going to talk through some of that on our call, and we'll give an update next month.
Yeah, I think that's a good topic to follow up on, because I don't understand why there's a resistance to getting them approved. Is it just bureaucratic slowness?
I
Or is there
don't.
some objection?
No, there's no. They have not vocalized to me, either on the phone or through email, any resistance in any way. I just think it's a process. And simultaneously, they are in the middle of a 6,000-page audit for all of their medical schools right now, credentialing process, so re-credentialing. So they are busy. They're upholding all the responsibilities that we've asked them to do so far. The big one between now and September 30th is $1 million spend. But other than that, they've paid the taxes. They're doing everything that they said they were going to do. And it's just this one hurdle. And I'm not sure if it's, bureaucratic or what. But.
Frank, in reading the sentence, it looks as though being included in state legislation, is it a legislative function or executive function in terms of certification? Do you know?
I don't, my guess would be legislative, but I don't know the answer to that question. We'll find out more on the call.
Right, because the distinction being the legislature's in session still is, is there a bill floating around that needs to get addressed before session is out, or is there something that is destined to be going to the governor's office? So and that's a pretty significant distinction in terms of what needs to be done. And yeah, I'm kind of curious, and then seeing if there's anything that we as a board can do to help.
And that's what I said in my letter, and I've conveyed to Dr. Cannon. So we'll be able to give a more thorough update after our call next week.
I don't know why I think I know this, but at some point in time, do you trust me in my memory? There is legislation, and I think the politics of that particular bill was trying to get more opportunities for Florida schools.
Correct.
Now, I don't think it was necessarily at the exclusion of anybody else, but I
Correct.
think that was the focus. So there's probably some political force there, but we
That was
do need-
about-
we need to just know and follow through and
Yeah.
do what we can do to help.
Residency slots being available for all the Florida schools to make sure that those folks can stay in state. But, so not to the exclusion of others,
Right.
but they wanted to be certain of that.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Isley? Thank you, Frank.
I'm sorry.
Nope.
I know you're in a hurry,
Nope.
but I couldn't help but notice the comments you made in here, Frank, about Cleveland Clinic's economic performance in serious areas, behavioral health and maternity and delivery. And so I just, since we're in a public meeting and people are looking, I think people should be aware that these are issues that we're going to have to confront. We mentioned it at the chairman's meeting, but I think it's important to do it in this meeting. And any public comment that you might have about the importance of these services to Indian River County residents, I think it'd be good if you would reach out to us and talk to us about it as we try to manage through a difficult situation from a taxpayer's point of view, but also from Cleveland Clinic's point of view. Or important services that we've enjoyed, or at least embraced in this community for decades.
Indeed.
Okay. Anybody else? All right, we will move on to number D, 6D, which is Funded Agencies Semi-Annual Report, and that's going to be from our friends at Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council. Ramey, the microphone is yours.
Thank you, thank you. This is my first time to be in front of you as the new board, so my name is Remy Knuckles. I'm the visionary leader for the Treasure Coast Homeless Services Council, and we want to thank you again for your support. With regard to the 6-month report that we provided, and I know you want me to talk about the pit too, so we'll get there. When we submitted our grant application 2 years ago, we said that we would serve 48 clients annually. To date, we've served 66. 46 of those were housed within 92 days. 99% still remain housed. They have not re-entered the system. We've only had one person that has re-entered homelessness, and we are still in contact with that individual because he is incarcerated at this present time. Only 20% have sought emergency services after they have left the respite, and they still stay in contact with healthcare navigation and with mental health supports. We are currently on a track to serve 98 clients from our original time period. So we would basically bypass our number of 96 served in 2 years to 98. So, with an average bed night during that cumulative time period of 76 bed nights, okay, per person, right?
That's the average.
That would be the average from the cumulative from the beginning since we started, okay? One of the important components with this program is engaging individuals who may be eligible for Social Security disability income and making an application for that. When we started the program, applications were being approved much more quickly than they are now. The average approval time period, so when you're homeless, we normally have disability applications with Social Security Administration approved within 90 days of submission, okay? So that would give us some time to work with them very briefly, get the information in, and we would have some time period. But because of that challenge, the average wait time now is over 200 days for a Social Security disability application approval. So the challenge that we've had is individuals who don't have any income, who do meet that specification, it's taking longer to be able to get them housed because they have no money. And we've already spent all of our allocated funding for individuals that would meet the chronic homeless criteria to get ongoing rental assistance. In August, we receive an additional $400,000. So hopefully we'll be able to move people out more quickly than what we have in the past, because that will free up some ongoing monthly rental assistance for individuals who meet that criteria. And we serve about 220 households doing that across all 3 counties, about 90 here in Indian River County that have severe and persistent mental illness or a disabling condition. And so we were part of the group that got cut. We received our funds back. We lost 7 employees during that time period. So that impacts the work that clients get to engage in order to be successful. So that has had a profound impact for us. And so hopefully we're still working to obtain those federal funds back. And we will lose about $300,000 from the state come July 1st because of funding cuts. So let's get into the homeless count for just a moment. For those of you who are new on the board, can I give you a little bit brief history with that? Annually, because our organization is the lead continuum of care for homelessness in Indian River, St. Lucie, and Martin counties, we're required by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development to count on any given day, on a 24-hour time period, the number of individuals who are literally homeless. And that definition is anyone who's living on the streets, in a shelter, or a place not meant for human habitation, such as a car or an abandoned building, okay? So our definition is very limited in our approach. Individuals who may be doubled up and living with another family member, we cannot count those individuals. So we do know that there's a higher need in the community because across all 3 counties we have a decrease, but it's 2,700 across all 3 counties. And we obtained that number from the school system because the Department of Education has a different homeless definition, okay? So in Indian River County, our count for that day, in 2024, we were at 701, and in 2025, we reduced it to 569 across all 3 counties. So in Indian River County, we went from 225 to 198. So what that means for us is that our inflow in Indian River County is still very high according to our outflow, meaning getting people from streets into shelter or housing permanently. So we're working diligently to increase our outflow so we can reduce that number. We are very fortunate because we receive state dollars that allow us to provide a first month's rent, security deposit, and sometimes 2 or 3 months of assistance. Last year, we were able to do a year's worth of assistance for some clients. But we're not going to be able to do that as we move into July. Certainly.
And understand the numbers. So you're saying in Indian River County, when you did the sweep, that 24-hour sweep, how many homeless did you count?
In Indian River County, it was 198 total.
It's interesting because in years past, I've heard numbers of 6, 7, 1,200 at one point. What's the difference?
So here's my perspective. I came into the community with a different view on how to count.
Okay.
I personally believe the count from the past was very skewed. And there were potential opportunities that people may have been double counted. Because when I looked at the hard data that was in the office, it did not match the data that was in our database. And so when you see hard data that's not in your database for an individual that's been chronically homeless for years, so to speak, years, there's a complex issue with regard to data management or reporting. And when we review data from an aspect of that complex nature, if you see a family that's been receiving assistance from, like we're working with a family now that's been homeless since 2006, in and out of homelessness, and they're living in the woods right now. But we were able to track families like that. The hard data was showing there were individuals that we didn't have an ID for. We had no other person was counting with, so I make two people go out at the same time to do counts, so you can't have false data that's presented. So
Do you ever cross your numbers with the source, just to see what their numbers are as who they're serving?
So many of the clients that come from the source don't have been in our system and have had no direct connection to any benefits that they would be eligible for. So, for instance, they haven't had a SOAR application if they're eligible for SOAR, or a food stamp application, or a Medicaid application. And that's our biggest challenge when we look at data from the source, or even communication with the source. So,
With regard to your Social Security application process, are you guys helping with the applications?
yes, so
And-
part of the grant, you all pay for a SOAR specialist.
So I apply through you and get denied. I mean, you work it through to the point of finality? Do you have an attorney involved to help with you, or how?
No.
It doesn't require legal counsel for those who.
Correct.
But
So SOAR specialists are trained in a different way to process the applications. They have to go through a clinical component that provides detailed information with medical records, and they're trained to review specific medical records in order to submit with the application. So we, in collaboration with New Horizons and other mental health facilities, will gather the information from the physicians and pull the data together to have a solid application before it's submitted. So our submission rate and our approval rate is pretty good. So something I'm very happy with. Any other questions?
I know that you referenced since, bless you,
pardon me.
since the beginning, over the 2-year period, you're within the 90 days on average. But this report showing, and we'd heard through Jenny, I think, that because of the issues you're having right now, it's at 107 in the report. I think I understand some of the reasons there. The question that it begs in my mind is this. I mean, I'll use the reference Hobson's Choice, and I don't know if anybody else knows that movie or book, but the point is, there's a hard choice to make. Are there people that the hospital calls you for and says, this guy absolutely needs to be taken care of, he's got nowhere to go, and you don't have a bed because we don't want to dismiss somebody?
We've had that a challenge. We've also had individuals who came to us that we really shouldn't have had because it got into a care model that we're not insured for. And so we've had to be really clear with Cleveland and say, this client can't come back unless we have all these things. And so that has been a challenge for us. However, last year, we housed individuals who didn't have income, waiting on their Social Security, and we we were the ones that took the brunt of that, so. And it's reflected in our financials, so. Currently, we have, I can't remember how many we have right now, but the average day as of today is 70 days. So it's always going to fluctuate depending on how many are there. The one with the largest length of stay is someone who's been there for 162 days. He's a 91-year-old male and isn't eligible for all of the programs because he never earned income. He always did things under the table. So he's not eligible for Social Security disability and some of those challenges. So those present us with some significant challenges. So not even an assisted living facility will take them because we can't get them on long-term Medicaid waiver. And so we are really challenged with that one case. And he can't take care of himself. So we're holding him, and it's more of a liability that I would like. So, but we're trying to do the right thing on behalf of the client, so.
I mean, I noticed on the second page of your report that by age clients served, that 72% are over the age of 50.
Yes, yes.
And comments on that and why?
We're finding a lot of elderly individuals who, by no fault of their own, if they receive $900 a month on Social Security and they've been living in a situation where their rent has been cheap, or they lose their home, or they have gone through all of their savings, they're living out of their cars and coming to us.
And you've seen that increase in the last couple of years?
Yes. Even in the data, we have the prior year, it was an increase of about 23%, and I think this year the number even went higher. And I don't remember what that number is. I didn't bring that with me today. But those individuals who are on Social Security disability and trying to live in an apartment on their own, we have a shared housing coordinator who is matching people up, kind of like a date, if you will. And the best way to explain it is the Golden Girls show, right. Teaming individuals up who can pay a little bit here and there. In St. Lucie County, we have a couple of locations where people are sharing, and they are two to a bedroom because they just don't have very much income. And they still access the support of the shelter system there to have food or anything else that they may need, so.
Are you able to, like those that are here in Indian River County, because you're a regional, and are you able to move people from Indian River County into St. Lucie or vice versa if there is ample housing in other counties with your funding?
So the best way to answer that, in our performance metrics, that's a no-no. Huge no-no for us. And with my background, to gain more money for us from the federal component, I'm always going to be looking at the metrics to improve those. So we were doing that when I came. We're not doing that anymore. We will if there is not a bed if there is not a bed open in St. Lucie, and we do have one, or if there's not a bed open in Indian River and there is in St. Lucie, we will move someone to that bed. But we won't move from one bed to another bed because that kills our metrics. If they're in a bed, we don't move them from one bed in one county to another bed because it's considered an exit, and it's a bad exit to move from
Okay, so if
shelter
they
to
don't have
shelter.
a bed yet, you can move them because
Correct.
they're homeless.
Yeah.
And so there could be homeless in Indian River or St. Lucie or Martin, basically. But
That-
if they haven't got a bed, you can move them.
Yes, yeah.
Interesting.
We do have much more success in housing people in St. Lucie County. Fortunately, we have been master leasing units because the population that we serve, the population we serve may have credit history or background challenges with rentals. So what we do is we lease a unit from a landlord. We take on the risk So we use our risk pool from the state. So if there's damages to the unit, we pay for the damages, but we will house that client, and that client pays us the rent. So it does allow us the ability to house more individuals because most landlords would not rent to some of the clients that we serve. And that's not everyone that happens to, but if they do have credit history and they don't have a 650 credit score, if you've been homeless, your score probably isn't that good, and you're gonna have to work on it. So this gives them an opportunity to build their credit, get back on budget, and look at work opportunities if they're eligible to do that.
You made a comment that you're going to be losing $300,000. Is that for this program, or is it for another program, and why?
So if you all remember, last year, the state did a bill called House Bill 1365, which criminalized homelessness. And the state provided about $300,000 to us to be able to either fund additional shelters in all 3 counties or pay for staffing. So in each county, it was done differently. So like Martin County used their funds to provide more shelter because we didn't have a lot of shelter beds in Martin County. We do now, thank goodness. And we were able to pay for that for an extended time so we can work through that later. In St. Lucie County, they used the funds to combine the men and women shelter. So we have all the men and women at one shelter, and that makes it much better for us for staffing wise. And then in Indian River, we used it for outreach, specifically to outreach individuals on the streets and get them into shelter. And we did engage with 2 other, what we call non-congregate shelters. So it's like renting a house and having 5 or 6 people in a house. So, and then moving them from that location into the community.
But those funds are not reoccurring, is what you're saying?
Those funds are not reoccurring, correct.
Reference, you're having issues getting your clients to see a primary care physician, and there is sometimes a wait of 2 months. Are you working not just with Cleveland, but with TCCH and Whole Family Health? I'm sure I've heard Vicki say that they can transition quicker than
Yes.
that.
So we've had some clients that did have their own health insurance that had trouble getting in. And so we would try to get them into Whole Family Health or to Treasure Coast. We work more with Treasure Coast primarily, and have a great working relationship with them. And I'm hoping we resolve that, so.
That's a little concerning, just because it's maybe a mixed message.
If not, please let us know.
Yeah.
Is that the reason, or is there another reason why, despite all this increase in tragic homelessness that you're having to deal with, you've only spent about 1/3 of the budget in half the year?
So thank you for asking that question.
You're welcome.
Last year was our first year. So we paid for, one of the locations that we house men, we rent. And we were paying our monthly rent. Well, we started in October, but by the time it took us to hire the staff and begin the program, our first client didn't enter until, I think, December. And so we were behind. So we didn't spend all of our funds. So the remaining funds that we used last year, we paid our rent for the whole year for this year. And so that's something we're trying to work through now, like how are we going to go ahead and spend the rest of this funds to accommodate that. So we've been having that discussion internally already. Because we would have been normally paying monthly on the rent, but we paid ahead for the year. So that kind of got us out of sync. So that's the reason why we have that gap there.
Any other questions for Remy? Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you've done.
Yeah.
Yeoman's work out there.
Thank you.
Amy.
Is there any unfinished business that needs to be us deal with? New business? Other business? Hearing none. Anyone from the public choose to make a comment? I don't know if we have anybody on Zoom or not. Okay. Well, if that is the case,
Can I just make one comment just for what it's worth?
sure.
Because I don't want you to break Carrie's record here.
I think I missed it.
But, you know, we have an audience that's watching. We're doing a lot of work with special meetings and then the chairman's meeting. And then we come to this, which is televised, and people are watching, and they don't see much happening. I think we should have a broader agenda here so that the public has a better understanding of these agencies and the work they do, and the needs and the community that we are helping to solve with local efforts. In fact, Trustee Paul Westcott brought up at yesterday's meeting about a proposal going through the Florida legislature right now to eliminate property taxes, ad valorem property taxes, which is the sole source at the present time, other than interest income, of the hospital district and a number of other things, services in this county. So I think the public, that sounds pretty good. I would like to pay no property tax too. But the reality is, we'll be moving money that is collected locally, and is the amount of which is decided locally for local problems. That's all going to get moved to Tallahassee to be redistributed in some way. And a number of agencies, including the one we just heard, that are experiencing cutbacks from the state, tells me that I think solving local problems locally is better. And so we ought to get this on the agenda of the public, because there's a lot of work being done by the staff, by the trustees, to try to administer these funds efficiently and effectively in trying to move healthcare, trying to improve health outcomes in our county.
Thank you, Alan. Anyone else? I think we are at the end of the agenda, and we are officially adjourned. Thank you all.
Thank you.